All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for hanging out with me, even though I'm on the road and producing these, not live, but still keeping you guys updated with Illinois in Focus Daily. Get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus and you'll be able to find that. But also, I want to remind you to get the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com. That's thecentersquare.com. You can sign up for the newsletter where you can select Illinois specifically to get Illinois headlines, or you can get headlines from anywhere else across the Center Square properties. So get that newsletter in your inbox each and every weekday morning. Coming up, we'll still take a look back at some of the things that happened in the 103rd General Assembly and what to expect in the 104th General Assembly for the Illinois State House, where they're talking about sex workers. Pretty controversial story making the rounds on X, but we'll touch on that. We also have to talk about energy prices and a measure that passed both chambers last week that some worry is going to increase energy prices. So stay tuned for that as well. But we also have to tackle the latest out of Cook County when it comes to the gun and ammo tax. I chatted with Gun Save Life Executive Director John Bach earlier this morning. We talk about that, and we talk about U.S. Supreme Court cases that they could or could not be considering. So stay tuned. That's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Years ago, Cook County enacted a $25 tax on guns and between a 1 and 5 cent tax on every round of ammunition in the county. And that apparently is on its last leg. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. It's unbelievable to see just how long it takes for these things to get dealt with in the courts. But yesterday, out of Cook County, a judge sided with Guns Save Life, challenging the county's gun and ammo tax. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Don't forget to get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning. Go to thecentersquare.com and find this podcast wherever you find podcasts. All right, let's get into it. Gun Save Life, gun rights advocacy group in Illinois. They don't just hold meetings. They also get involved in litigation. And one of these lawsuits is challenging the state's, or rather the Cook County tax on guns and ammo. Long history here. Back in 2012, Cook County passed a tax on guns and ammo, $25 per gun, 1 to 5 cents per round of ammunition, which you got to think can really add up if you're buying in bulk in Cook County. But obviously, gun rights advocates challenged that. There's still a pending challenge that gun rights advocate Todd Vandermeide has against Cook County, but you also had Guns Save Life challenging the gun and ammo tax. I talked with Gun Save Life Executive Director John Bach, and he reacted to the Cook County judge yesterday, Monday, siding with Gun Save Life in this case.
Well, it sounds like yesterday's ruling means that the trial court is carrying out the Illinois Supreme Court's directive from 2021. Of course, after they issued this, Illinois Supreme Court issued their order, Cook County argued that we amended the ordinance to fix the remedies, and as such, it should not be followed through, and they continue to collect the taxes. However, finally now, after 4 years, the trial court has ruled, look, we don't have the authority to relitigate this case, and as such, here's the final decision, throwing out the Cook County gun and ammo tax, and that's it. It's entered. At this point, I think our side's in negotiations with Cook County to cease the collections of these taxes that have been ruled unconstitutional, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't act like adults and they want to go try to relitigate this some more, take it to the appellate court. If they want to get stupid with this, it might ultimately end up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, where there's already a couple of cases setting precedent that you can't have a targeted tax against a fundamental right, like the First Amendment or the right to vote or even the right to the free press. So I think that could strike the end of these gun and ammo taxes nationwide if Kwame Raoul and Cook County want to be stupid about this. So we'll see how it all follows through and how it ends up. It's already been in the courts for 10 years already. What's another year or so?
Big question some of you might have out there is, what if you paid some of those taxes over the past 10 years? What's going to happen there? Is this something that is going to get refunded? Is this something that people are going to end up suing over? Is this something that is just going to go down a dark hole?
That's a very good question. What to do with the people who have paid the taxes? There's already at least one class action lawsuit that I'm aware of that people are asking for the county to cough that money back up. And maybe not necessarily to the individual gun owner specifically, but who knows, it may end up, well, quite frankly, it'll mostly end up with the lawyers, but it may end up with charitable causes. Who knows? But I think there will be ultimately some attorneys out there that are going to be scrapping over what to do with those millions of dollars that have been collected over the years. And Cook County is going to be scrambling to come up with that money that I'm sure they've spent on trivial things as they usually do.
Now, the history of this tax, again, back in 2012, it was enacted. People sued. It went all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court, which ultimately said that Cook County couldn't do the tax the way they did it. Well, then Cook County, they just went ahead and amended the ordinance and continued taxing guns and ammo. Bach says, could we see something like that again from Cook County this time around after yesterday's ruling from a circuit court judge?
I think your memory is correct. And again, though, the trial court said, look, we don't have the authority to relitigate this just because you amended the ordinance. And they gave the final decision in the last few days as a result of that. I'm sure the Cook County could say, well, let's try to relitigate again, but I just don't see that getting a lot of traction. I think the Cook County Court is ready to be done with this, but if they want to appeal this decision from the 10th, from that judge, it may go up to the appellate court, and ultimately, worst case scenario for Cook County is that this, again, ends up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, where they've already ruled that you can't have targeted taxes against fundamental rights, and the Second Amendment is certainly a fundamental right. And if the U.S. Supreme Court rules on this, it'll mark the end of these gun and ammo taxes nationwide, and a whole bunch of these other states and municipalities that have similar taxes, they're not going to be real happy with Cook County for ruining their little gravy train prematurely by being boneheads about this.
All right, now on some other issues concerning gun rights. Again, talking with John Bach, gun rights advocate with Gun Save Life. Headlines across the country yesterday was that the U.S. Supreme Court turning away a gun owner ID law challenge, I believe out of Maryland, not wanting to take that case. But it seems that that case was on preliminary grounds. What does that mean for the state of Illinois' challenges? Gun rights advocates taking the firearm owner ID card case to court to try to challenge that as unconstitutional. Does that make Illinois' cases that much more important?
Well, as we learned ourselves in our case, the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't intervene in preliminary cases. They don't do interlocutory appeals. They want to have the final case that's been settled on the merits, and then they'll take a look at maybe accepting the case for their court docket. Again, they only accept, 50 or 60 cases each year of the thousands, if not tens of thousands, that are sent their way. So I'm not surprised that the Maryland case was rejected. No surprise there. They do have a couple of other cases that they are flirting with, including another case out of Maryland involving gun bans, a case out of Rhode Island involving magazine bans, and our hope as the pro-gun community is that they accept those and establish some framework of rules for whether or not these states can ban popular self-defense semi-automatic rifles and the magazines that feed them.
Clearly, there's a lot more to be said about all of this. And again, we'll do what we can to keep you updated here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Did want to recap something that we talked about yesterday, and that deals with the measure that passed both chambers in the Illinois General Assembly last week, dealing with orders of protection, essentially saying that if somebody's the subject of an order of protection, then police have to confiscate those firearms. Well, Governor J.B. Pritzker last week, he said that he will sign that bill.
I think it's pretty good. Remember that this is something that's been important to me. As you know, we've heard from law enforcement over the course of the negotiations of it, the challenge of removing guns from a home or from a person. I think you've heard this before, that when someone's FOID card, for example, has been revoked and we know they have a weapon, that it takes 4 police officers usually to go remove just one weapon from the hands of somebody who had their FOID card revoked. 4 police officers. And we have, there were, I think at the time that we were examining this problem, there were 10,000 people whose FOID cards had been revoked. But can you imagine having 4 officers go to 10,000? I mean, the amount of time, the amount of law enforcement that would be taken off the streets, very challenging. So that was one of the things that was in consideration about how do we effectuate this. And I think law enforcement got to a point where they felt like they can effectuate the Karina's law. And it's the right idea. It's the right thing to do. I will sign the bill.
All right, again, guys, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us with Illinois in Focus Daily each and every weekday morning. And get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. Push is underway in Illinois to legalize sex work. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop here each and every weekday morning. And you can get this and other headlines at thecentersquare.com. And the headline is, Democrats, activists push to decriminalize sex work in the land of Lincoln. So what's happening here? We've heard rumblings about this for quite some time. Even earlier this year, I believe, there was a news conference where somebody announced that they hoped to work towards essentially decriminalizing sex work, prostitution. But last week, we got a little bit of a glimpse of what to expect with a law that some are wanting to advance that did pass both chambers, that redefines certain types of sex work crimes to maybe soften the language up a bit. But here is State Senator Karina Villa talking about a measure she put in front of a Senate committee before it ended up getting on the Senate floor and passing last week.
This bill is not the decrim bill. That's a different bill that will be presented at a different time. This bill does 3 different things. It requires all law enforcement agencies to create and adopt policies prohibiting officers from having sex with suspects while investigating prostitution. Also, prostitution hasn't been a felony in Illinois for over 10 years, so it would require the Illinois State Police, local law enforcement, and circuit court clerks to automatically seal all prior arrests and court records related to felony prostitution charges by January 1st, 2028. The clerks are okay with that. Law enforcement is okay with all of this. And finally, it would update the phrases juvenile prostitution, minor engaged in prostitution, and prostitute to commercial sexual exploitation of a child, sexually exploited child, and person engaged in sex. These changes don't affect any arrest charges, prosecution, conviction, or sentences.
And then you've got on the House floor, when this was brought up, State Representative Will Guzzardi wanting to talk more about this issue, but clearly being cut off by the chair in front of the House, acting Speaker Jay Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have another historic opportunity before us, members of the General Assembly, to move an effective date from January 1st to July 1st. I hope you'll join me in making history by this 6-month effective date change. This is, as I say, a small change to a bill that we passed several months ago pertaining to prostitution. It was a bill that changes some names of offenses throughout the statute. It's a bill that seals some former felony offenses, and it's a bill that requires law enforcement to make agreements about how they investigate prostitution. This bill is negotiated and agreed to by law enforcement, by the courts, by the advocates for who oppose sexual trafficking. It's an agreed bill with all stakeholders, and the amendment before us simply moves the effective.
On this question, Leader Windhorse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the motion, to members on our side, this is a minor change with the amendment. Review your vote and vote accordingly.
Representative Guzzardi to close.
I have a lot more to say, but I'll urge and I vote.
So again, all that does is it just changes some definitions, puts more requirements on police to not be bad actors, and a variety of other things, but dealing with prostitution, sex work. But then yesterday, Equality Illinois, several activists, and also Will Guzzardi and other state legislators, they held a news conference in Chicago talking about how they want to legalize or decriminalize sex work. And ultimately what you have is this effort would bring about a sex worker bill of rights. It would change the law in a variety of ways. But how is this going to go, right? We're in a new General Assembly. The bill has not yet been filed. We'll see those details when they do get filed, but they're already out in front of it promoting this idea to decriminalize sex work. One comment here from Reina Ortiz with the group called the Sex Worker Advisory Group. They said that the bill is a monumental step forward in recognizing the rights, safety, and humanity of sex workers. They say, quote, by passing this legislation, we will make Illinois a safer place for everyone, especially the most vulnerable in our communities. And even Will Guzzardi said full decriminalization of adult consensual sex work is proven to keep workers safe. They say it's a policy that respects everyone's rights to make private choices about their bodies while freeing up law enforcement to focus on traffickers and violent abusers. Now, it'll be interesting to hear the debate when this measure does ultimately come up in the House and the Senate committees. So we'll be watching that closely, all right? But a controversial issue, no question about it. Redefining prostitutes to be persons engaged in sex work, that could be on the governor's desk soon. And then we'll see what happens with this proposal to try to decriminalize sex work. All right, so stay up on top of it with us at thecentersquare.com and get the headlines in your inbox. Plus, subscribe to Illinois in Focus Daily with America's Talking Network and get the podcast where you get podcasts. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. Energy costs have already gone up for some people by as much as 50% in recent years, while the state aims to try to have 100% so-called renewable energy by 2050. But some worry that there could be even more increases on the way with new legislation that could be on the governor's desk soon. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Now, last week, the 103rd Illinois General Assembly wrapped up their work. The new 104th General Assembly has started. But I want to take a step back to what happened last week with a bill that was brought up in the Illinois House, passed both chambers, but it ultimately would help rewrite some of Illinois' energy policies, kind of a cleanup of sorts. And this is after reports indicate that Illinois is not making strides to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker's goal of 100% renewable energy by 2050. Reports indicating it's slow to come about. Reports indicating that banks aren't wanting to invest in certain types of projects because, well, they might not be viable or the cash flow might not be there. We're talking about solar and wind projects. Well, a measure that State Representative Robin Gable brought about would bring some changes to the state's energy policies. She laid that out on the House floor.
One of the bigger items in the bill is to correct problem that we've had with large utilities being able to start their renewable projects. Banks have been worried about outlier extreme scenarios where energy prices go super low for a long time and renewable contract payments would have to increase above what IPA had projected and result in delays in payments to renewable projects. This change in the bill would essentially signal to the banks that the IPA would honor the contracts, that they will get paid. This also extends high impact business designation to businesses establishing battery storage facilities in the state. They would then be eligible for tax incentives.
Now, something else you got to think about is the battery subsidies. That's something else that's in this bill. And State Representative Dave Severin, he said, there's plenty of storage in Southern Illinois.
I want everyone to hear that. Since CEJA has been instituted, Ameren's rates in Southern Illinois have increased 50%. That's on business and homeowners. Also, I want to say this, that the Prairie State, they right now have a 90-day battery backup. You know what that is? It's a pile of coal in Southern Illinois. I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you very much.
To the issue of the banks and freeing up some taxpayer resources through the Illinois Power Authority, Robin Gable talked about. She said they want to make sure that the banks know that they're going to get paid. Well, State Representative Brad Halbrook said, hold on a second. That's a red flag.
And we are serious. We really want to make sure that these projects can get financed, built quicker. Wind and solar are cheaper than gas and coal, and we want to make sure that they can get on the grid. There has been a problem getting them on the grid, mainly because of these financing issues, the long queues, and that's one of the things that this bill is trying to address.
Yeah, so to your point about these projects not being able to get financed, Leader, in the world that most of us live in, if a project doesn't get financed, it's because it's not feasible to be a working project. And so to stand here on this House floor, chamber floor, and to make a statement that solar and wind is cheaper, but then we have to have all this state and federal legislation to prop it up, that's just simply not true. I don't know how you can make that statement. Yeah, please explain how that is possible without this legislation to prop it up. If these projects were sustainable, they were cheaper.
The issue with the financing is that they have not been had any security, and this bill is going to help with that. They're going to make sure that that they would get paid. So finances don't like to invest in things that they're not sure they're going to get paid.
So
with this change, the IPA, they will be assured that they will be paid.
Right. So all we're doing here to add security to these failing projects is to transfer or to put the burden on taxpayers, on ratepayers, one way or the other, to make sure that that the creditors are going to get paid on this thing.
Then you also have Gable saying that she doesn't anticipate rates to increase because of this legislation that's soon to be on the governor's desk. State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer wasn't buying that.
Somebody has to pay for the cost of this, right? And it is the consumer. It is our taxpayers, it is our ratepayers that pay for every bit of this bill. So if you think that you're not voting for an increase, a cost increase to taxpayers or to ratepayers, who is paying for this? Who do we think is paying for this? I am not opposed to new technology moving forward and new renewable energy, but it has to be able to produce itself. I'm all for that stuff. I've got a 12-year-old, I've got a 15-year-old. I want them to live in a clean environment. The reality is these new forms of technology have to be able to take care of themselves. Otherwise, all you're doing is putting additional burden on grandma who's already got a hard time trying to pay her rate bill right now.
So there you have it, another bill that's going to be on the governor's desk. Some worry is going to increase energy prices as the state's looking to bring about 100% renewable energy by 2050 with more electric vehicles. How this is going to work out in the years ahead, especially with an incoming Trump administration, we shall see. That's why you got to subscribe to Illinois in Focus Daily and also get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. All right, that's all I got for you today here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Hopefully it was informative. Still on the road. Not sure yet when I'll be able to get back into the home studio, but still glad that we have the technology to be able to do this. The lighting is, it's not that great, but, it's all about the information, right? It's not about my good looks or whether or not I've got hairspray in my hair. But hopefully you guys are staying informed. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. And we'll see you guys back here soon.